Hello everyone and welcome to this Empath Chat, and I am so thrilled because I have Nicola Humber, who is an incredible mentor of mine, my writing process, and she's an author and actually started the Unbound Press, which is a publishing imprint, almost a year ago. The anniversary is on the 22nd of November, and I was one of the participants, the first participants in the first group of the Unbound Writing Mastermind, and I published my first book with them as well, and I think I was the second book. It's very exciting, and so I'm really pleased to have Nicola, because writing's such a such a form of self-care for me, and I know many, and writing my book was just such a transformational experience for me, so I'm really excited for Nicola to be here and to share more. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Tara, and I'm excited to see what comes out of our conversation. We never know what magic is going to emerge from it. So, yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Amazing. So, can you tell me a little bit about the writing process and you, and how you kind of got into what you do, and just share a little bit about like yourself, more from what I shared, please.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I've always been a writer, right back from when I was a little girl. I loved books, loved reading, and loved writing. It's something that came very naturally to me. I wrote my first book when I was about 6 or 7, I think. It was called The Wise Owl, and I wrote this short story, and one of my teachers typed it up and made it into this kind of little book for me. And I've still got it now, which is very exciting.
Wow, that's amazing.
I know, it really is. And the story, when I read it back, I'm like, oh my goodness, like little Nicola was a genius, because it's about an owl that stays awake during the day with all the other animals, doesn't realise that he's meant to kind of sleep during the day and come out at night. And then he finds like the other owls and finds his true self, kind of thing. It's like,
wow,
oh, that's such an Unbound story. I love it.
My God, yeah.
So I always used to write, but then I stopped. I kind of was very academic at school and followed the pathway. I went to university, did a business degree. Don't know why I did a business degree, but it's kind of what I felt I should do, and then had a career in finance. So that part of me was kind of shut down completely. And I used to journal a bit, but it wasn't really a regular practice for me until I completely changed direction. I made a kind of intuitive decision to retrain as a coach and a hypnotherapist. And it was through kind of the personal journey that I went on, like during my hypnotherapy training, and then I did counseling training, and all of that involved a lot of writing about what was coming up, and the different discoveries or rediscoveries I was making about myself. So then it became more of a practice for me personally. And when I started my business, which was a hypnotherapy and coaching practice initially, I started a blog pretty much straight away. It probably wasn't that great at the time, but I think I always did it, looking back, as a way of kind of self-expression as much as kind of wanting to connect with other people. It was always like stuff that was interesting for me and that I wanted to express. And if it resonated with other people, that was great. Obviously, it was a blog. Part of the intention was to reach more people with my work. But I've always had to write about things that feel really interesting to me and feel like I want to express them. So there's always that element to everything I write. And then that led on to writing the books. Like, wrote my first book, Here You're in a Good Girl. I think it was 2016 that came out. And I'd always wanted to write a book. And when I finally gave myself permission to do that, it just feels like it opened everything up for me. I was able to connect more deeply with myself and see how all of my experience, rather than kind of judging elements of my experience, I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense. I kind of had to experience that to kind of find out or rediscover like these different parts of me and who I truly am. Although obviously that's an ongoing journey. And then that led to writing Unbound, which was kind of like a deeper exploration of that, I guess. And magically to launch Unbound Press. So it's been this journey, which, you know, I don't feel that it hasn't been strategic and it hasn't been planned. It's something that's happened very organically and naturally, which I love.
No, and I love that about you, Nicola. Exactly. You do follow your intuition and you kind of just take that next step and don't kind of, well, maybe you do, but it doesn't seem that you do worry about, you know, what's going to happen, the bigger picture, but it just really just trust it so much. And I love that about you. It's so inspiring.
I think I did used to worry a lot more, you know, it's kind of a muscle that I've had to strengthen, but now I've experienced it so many times over and over again that when I allow myself to trust and just listen to my intuition, my inner knowing, and sometimes it doesn't come from inside me. Sometimes it'll be something someone else says, or you know, and oh, okay, that kind of feels really right. When I follow that, magic always happens in one way or another, you know, and I can look back and see so many examples of that. So I've been able to kind of develop this deep sense of self-trust. Of course, there's times when I do worry, you know, wake up in the middle of the night and think, what the fuck am I doing?
Exactly. Seriously.
But generally, and because I surround myself with people who live in the same way, that makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely. And I just want to say your two books are, you know, I've read Unbound. I haven't read Heal Your Inner Good Girl, but oh my goodness, two like must read. Absolutely, just incredible, and such a shining example of really just trusting in that, following yourself, and that, you know, I love what you said. It was like, it's for you exploring, you know, you're reflecting and you're writing, and you can really, it goes deep. It's really, really inspiring, and there's so much to be gained from your self-inquiry and your reflections for anyone and everyone reading it. So yeah,
thank you. And I think, you know, that's important for people to hear, not kind of in relation to me, but
I hear you.
So often when I'm working with women who are writing books, there's a big part that comes up of like, oh, well, people aren't going to want to hear about me, and you know, they're not going to want to hear about my story and my experience, or even my opinions. Like, I've got to make it you know, it's got to be like really informational, and I've got to make sure people have got all the how-tos, and I've got to come across as the expert. And it's like, no, you know, people want to hear about you, and it's, you know, your people will want to kind of hear about your perspective and your experience and your story, even if it's messy, like especially if it's messy, because we've all had experiences like that. And that's what creates the connection. So, you know, it feels risky to do that. And sometimes it can come up like, oh, but I'm being self-indulgent, and who am I to do this? And all of that stuff that comes up for everybody. But when you allow yourself to move through that, the writing process is so much powerful for you as the writer, and for your reader as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, no, it really is. And I felt that in the mastermind and all of that, you know, writing, and definitely felt a lot of self-indulgence, and that I shouldn't share my book because it was just for me. But actually the amount of people that have come to me and said, oh my God, I can relate so much just from me sharing my story, which was, you know, a hugely healing process for me, healing process for me. So yeah, it's a really powerful tool in my personal opinion.
And how has that been for you, Tara? Like, I know you're asking me the questions, but because I know throughout the writing process, this was a big kind of like question for you, like, is this just for me? And if it had been just for you, then that was an incredibly healing process in itself. But what's it like now to hear people saying, oh, thank you so much for writing this, and letting you know the impact it's had?
It's really flattering, as well as just meaningful. And I'm just so honored, to be honest, that it's doing that, it's having that effect, because I really genuinely didn't expect that. And not, you know, it was for me. And this is what I would like to come on to with you is, you know, the writing process as a form of self-care. And
Yes.
writing for me is all, you know, I've loved writing. I was the same as you. I wrote books as a child, and I actually think I might still have one of my first ones somewhere here. But yeah, it was such a cathartic experience, that process, particularly writing my book. And yeah, having people say that, it's just, it really just, it's heartwarming. It's like, it's, yeah, just very moving and emotional, actually. So that's incredible. And it's more of the healing, I think, the self-care, you know, it continues beyond the writing.
Exactly. Yeah, because there's that connection.
Yeah.
And I know it can feel scary to think, like, in a way it can feel scary when your book's out there and people are reading it and you don't know what they're going to make of it or what the response is going to be. But there's something really empowering about that as well. Like, you know, really owning your story, owning your experience, and sharing it without an attachment to, you know, a particular expectation of what people are gonna, how people are gonna respond, and trusting that the right people will, you know, receive whatever they need from it, which is
absolutely
always the case.
And that attachment thing is key, because we have, you know, we hold so many attachments to, you know, how we're going to be perceived, what's, you know, people will think, oh my goodness, all of that stuff. So that was, you know, and actually your mastermind was hugely supportive in that as well, you know, all that you shared in the space you hold, Nicola. So that was, you know, really incredible for me, definitely, to have that, and to let go of the book. And that in itself is another form of self-care, really allowing it to be what it is.
Exactly. And it's interesting you talking about those attachments there, Tara, because I think they can come up like throughout the writing process, like sometimes even when we're journaling. But I find myself kind of judging my writing when I'm just journaling. It's just for me. And it's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No one's going to read this. And that can become accentuated when we're writing something that we're going to share publicly.
Oh my God, yes.
But, you know, there's that temptation to edit ourselves and censor ourselves, even when we're writing something just for us, you know, just for us. It's just, yeah, I guess it's like from all of those layers of conditioning that we pick up about who and how we should be in the world. But if we can let go of that, or, you know, definitely notice when it's happening, like what I tend to do now, if I notice myself judging, even when I'm writing for my book, I will kind of call that out in my writing and be like, hang on. I mean, I'm toning it down here because I'm kind of trying to edit myself in advance, or, you know, I notice that I'm judging this as a, you know, I will actually write that because that frees something up. It allows myself to be freer on the page, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely does. And yeah, that in itself, allowing yourself to be free, allowing yourself just to write, to let it come out, to be you, the real uncensored you, the you know, the not the good girl, the, you know, these masks, these personas, these parts of ourselves that we put on and think we have to be. And yeah, really letting that uncensored part come out is such healing, you know, form of self-care, everything. It's just so freeing and connects you with you. And this, yeah, again, that was, you know, your invitation in your group to do that was just incredible. So yeah, and yeah, anyone that can do that at all times it's amazing. I really, really think that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the powers of being in a group, being in community, actually. You know, like we're in this group here having this conversation, and I just think it's so key that we come together in spaces where we can be ourselves and explore what it means to be ourselves, and rather than trying to do it all on our own. Because I know certainly during the writing process, it can feel very isolating. And if you're just trying to kind of handle it all on the page, like just between you and your writing, it can feel overwhelming because all of these fears and doubts come up. Whereas when you're in a group, you're able to kind of just say, look, this is coming up for me right now, or I'm feeling really vulnerable. I know in the current rounds of the writing mastermind, like vulnerability, like everybody has had a vulnerability over the past week.
Oh my
but
God.
that's so powerful because everyone's going through it. So just hearing that other people are experiencing the same, it's like, oh, okay. It just feels, helps us to realize we're not alone, and there's not something wrong with us just because we're feeling this way. So I think you know, what you're doing with this group, Tara, and any group where we can come together with that shared intention is so, so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and thank you. Yeah. And also because Nicola's got a 5-day challenge, a free challenge to help you connect to your unbound writing self, so which we'll share more about. But I'd love you to first sort of share a little bit about how writing is sort of like self-care for you. Like, what are the key things you get from it?
Oh,
And your
so
writing process as well, if you like.
yeah. I mean, personally, for me, like in terms of journaling, like I resisted the idea of journaling for the longest time, because in my head I had the idea that I would have to sit for ages and, you know, write pages and pages in my journal every day to get any benefit. And what I recognize, you know, I'm not very good, like even when I'm writing a book, I have to write in really short chunks of time because it just comes through really quickly, and then I'm like, I'm done. And it's the same for me with journaling. Like sometimes, like what kind of helped me to create a journaling practice that works for me is giving myself permission, like even if I just write a couple of lines, that will create a shift for me, and it does. So that's enough. And sometimes obviously it will be more, but I just had to be really free around that. So like personally, I know there's probably two things. If I'm feeling like there's something just feeling not quite right for me, or there's something and I'm not sure what it is coming up, I'll either go for a walk, or I will just get my journal and literally start writing and asking the question, you know, what do I need to know right now? What does, you know, what is this feeling trying to tell me? And the answer, like whether I'm walking or writing, sometimes I do both. It comes very often pretty much straight away, or something will come through, something will shift. So it's such a key part of my self-care, just knowing that at any time, and it's not neat and tidy at all. It's like just like literally scrolling down, even a few words can create such a shift for me. And to get it kind of, or if I'm feeling overwhelmed about something, you know, there's all of these thoughts kind of buzzing around, if I can just get them onto the page and I don't have to make sense of them, you know, I don't have to analyze them, find the answer, whatever it is, just literally putting it onto the page. And I always handwrite, you know, if I'm writing a book initially, I will always kind of handwrite that. And obviously in my journal, there's something about that just, it feels very freeing. It allows kind of the energy of whatever I'm experiencing to move through me. Yeah. So even though it can feel, I think when we think about writing, it can feel quite intellectual, but I know it creates like a real shift in my body. And often in my journal, I will ask different parts of my body what they're wanting to communicate with me. That can be really powerful as well. If I'm noticing something in particular going on, like maybe in my throat or my belly, those are the two areas that I tend to kind of, that tend to speak to me most often. I will just, you know, write in my journal to kind of get a bit of clarity about what they're wanting me to know.
I love that so much. And your approach, it's like it gives you permission to do it in another way, in your way. Whereas, yeah, like you said, with writing, it can feel like we have to do it in the way we're taught in school, or that journaling has to be this number of pages for it to have any benefit or mean something. But I really love that you really allow it to be whatever it is, you know, no matter what that is. And that's such a freeing form of self-expression, self-care, you know, acknowledgement of yourself and your needs. Yeah.
Exactly. And I, you know, I've had to find my way with that because, you know, and when I came to write my first book, all of the advice I could see out there was that, you know, it all felt quite rigid to me, and that you had to like have a really clear plan, and, you know, that you had to write in this linear way. So it's like from one chapter to the next, from beginning to end. And it's like, well, my my brain doesn't work, my mind doesn't work in that way. My body definitely doesn't work in that way. You know, there's a huge cyclical element to how I live and how I write, and I don't think about things in a linear way. Ideas come through
Yeah.
randomly.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to give myself permission to write in that way as well. And it ended up being so much more powerful. I think by the time I got to Unbound, Hill, You're in a Good Girl, I guess, because it was my first book, I did write, and it was all about the good girl. So maybe I did write in a bit more of a good girl way, actually, because I was following a bit more of the advice. But with Unbound, I was like, oh no,
It has to be unbound.
it did. And that's the thing as well. I think each book, almost wants us to write it in a different way, or it can offer something different to our writing process each time, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to experience that with the next book that will come at some point. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my first book, Embodied, was definitely about me being in my body, and having to be and having to feel things and go in, like you shared, the journaling, going in and connecting to parts, and as well as a mix of mishmash. It was not a linear process whatsoever. And it was healing, it was crying, it was walking and recording, it was many different things. But it was such an incredible process to do.
Oh, and so wonderful to witness you doing that as well, Tara, and the way you embodied your message is very powerful. And I think this is another thing which can put us off writing. I think it can put a lot of women off writing in particular, is this idea that it has to be this like very intellectual, kind of head-based process, quite academic. And a lot of the women I work with are kind of from an academic background, like recovering academics. So it's like unlearning all of that stuff that we've been taught about writing, and giving ourselves permission to write in this different way and really access the wisdom of the body, the knowing of the body, and feeling, having this kind of felt experience as we write, rather than it all be coming from up here.
Yeah. I mean, and that is just the magic. That is what we're here to, I feel we're here to do, to be in our bodies and express.
Yeah.
That's it. And that is the ultimate form of self-care, really. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. If we don't express ourselves, and whether you choose to do that through writing or speaking, or, the way you live your life, the choices you make in your life, when we're not expressing ourselves fully, then that's when we get sick, or we fall into kind of behaviors and patterns that are not serving us. And I know we've both experienced that in different ways, and I'm sure each person in this group has. And I just think self-expression is absolutely key. Obviously what all my work is about, and it's what my personal journey has been about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And gosh, on that note, if anyone wants to explore their self-expression more, write more, connect with that part of themselves, please would you share details about your incredible 5-day challenge?
So it's the Unbound Writing Challenge, and it's happening from the 18th to the 22nd of November. So it's to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the Unbound Press. But we did run the Unbound Writing Challenge last year for the first time, and it's so powerful. It's like this 5-day transformational journey. So even if you're not thinking about writing a book at the moment, I can't, even if you're not,
you might decide
to. That definitely happened last year. Then come and join us, because really it is about connecting with your unbound self and what you want to express in the world, and whether that comes through a book or something else. It's a really interesting exploration. So I will kind of share the link.
We'll share the link and everything to join.
There's a pop-up Facebook group which is just the Unbound Writing Challenge 2019, so you can search for that, but we'll put the link here. And the great thing is that, we did the first one last year, and, some of the books that were started during that free challenge are now actually out in the world. So it's like, that's just so cool.
That's so cool. I love that. That's brilliant.
I know. I love it. It makes me so happy. So come and join us, and come on the journey for 5 days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's transformational, honestly. And the space that you hold is just magical. It's not like your typical writing things. Oh my goodness, like we've talked about. If you've got anything from that, you'll know that. Definitely.
Thank you. No, it's not typical.
No, no, it's magical. Totally magical. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Tara.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Nicola. It's so lovely to have you here and for sharing your process and your magic. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you, Tara, for writing Embodied and the work you're doing here. It's so important. And yeah, I'm really honoured that I got to hold space for you during the writing of Embodied as well. But thank you.
Thank you so much, lovely.